I would call this one of the more accessible songs of Marty. Definitely one of the more accessible songs in this album, Drama. And it's a nice way to learn about chord functions and key changes that Marty likes to use. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Deep Dive. Today we are looking at A Prayer by Marty Friedman, and part 1 will be all about harmony, which essentially means the chord progression of the song. Also, if there is something else going on in the rhythm section or something like that, we'll take a look at it. So, as you who are familiar with deep dives might remember, I'm gonna just categorize building chords into 3 simple sections. And the first category I like to use is chords that are built from the main scale. This song starts in F major, so that would mean building chords from the F major scale. Now the second category that I like to use is chords that are built from some other scale. We'll get to examples as we go along. And then the third category is chords that take us somewhere. Someday I'll come up with a snappier name for it, but yeah. Somewhere. Oh man, that's embarrassing. There we go. So those are the 3 main ingredients that I like to use for categorizing chords. But the other thing also is the other stuff that can exist on the chords, and I like to call them spices. Those are a thing that's separate from the category of the chords. So these are the 3 main categories. And then we can have all kinds of additions to those chords. For instance, if a chord is maybe a C major, then the chord can also be a C major add 9. But that doesn't take away from the function of the chord. It is still a C major that has some extra spice on top. It can be anything. This could be also a C minor chord, but the same spice is added on top, and it works still as a C minor chord. Now the first thing I want to talk about is the time signature. This song goes in 6/8 time, which is written right at the top of the score. See how it starts with that? Now you have probably seen other time signatures like 4/4. Sometimes that is also written as just a C, which means common time. Another time signatures are stuff like 3/4, 7/8, stuff like that. But what this means, let's go over what's going on here. We have 2 numbers. Let's take like this. We have 2 numbers here. The first one means how much you count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's it. If a song is in 7/8, that means the same thing. You count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You might want to skip the 7 because it accidentally becomes 2 syllables. Anyway, let's not get into that too deep. This number can be anything. It can be 13. It can be 21. It doesn't matter. I mean, there are no rules to it. It can be anything you want. Let's talk about the lower number. If the higher number means how much you count, then the lower number means how fast you count. Now what this is referring to is if we are in 4/4, then we have 4 quarter notes. And we count those as 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? But we can also do this and have 1/8 notes. Makes sense? So then the amount of time that is happening is the same, but we're just simply counting instead of 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay? So that the amount of time in the bar is the same. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. We can do the same thing as 16 notes too. This is starting to look a bit grimy, I'm sorry. But hopefully so those would be 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. So what is happening with the lower number is that we can assign it to correlate to this note, meaning the quarter note pulse, or we can assign it to the eighth notes, or we can also assign it to the 16 notes. So it's all the same amount of time. But the thing that helps with the time signatures is, for instance, we can have 3 quarter notes. That would mean that the bar would end there. So it just would be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Makes sense? Or we could have something like 5 eighth notes, in which it would end right there, just about. If this is the quarter note pulse, then this is the eighth note pulse in this case. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Makes sense? It's just referring to the pulse in which I'm counting. And the pulse is relative to the song. And sometimes there are a bit of gray areas. You know, is this eighth notes? Is this quarter notes? Sometimes someone might think about a song in 5/8. Another guy might think about it in 5/4. As long as they're playing together and everything's going well, it doesn't make that much of a difference. Now, we're gonna have to delve a bit deeper into this. I'm sorry. And what I'm gonna talk about now is, why would we have 6/8 if we can have 3/4? Now, mathematically, they are the same amount of time. 3/4 is mathematically the same amount of time as 6/8. That is true. If we write down the bar of 3/4, it will look like this, right? Now, if we write the same thing down in eighth notes, so 1 and 2 and 3, and it will look like this, all right? This is still 3/4. I'm just marking down the eighth notes. The thing that is different with 6/8 is it refers to the rhythmic feel of the song. And what that means is I'm going to write down the same amount of eighth notes. However, I'm going to group them differently. I'm going to group them like this. See that? It's the same amount of notes, same amount of eighth notes that is going on. What is different is the grouping. Let me clap for you the difference. So 3/4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3, and 1 and 2 and 3, right? 6/8 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, right? I'm not making anything, but what is going on here now is I'm gonna accentuate this and this. So the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the thing. The thing that's happening in the rhythm section is that the drums are really emphasizing the 6/8 bass drum here and the snare right here. So what happens is that is the difference between 3/4 and 6/8. It's a bit of a deeper subject, to be honest, but we don't have to worry about it that much for now, but that is what is going on here. Okay, let's start to look at the chords of the song. Now we are in F major. Okay, and from here it would be just the octave, which is just the 1 again. Notice how there is only one flat, and that is something that also happens in the start of the notation. There is a single flat right behind the time signature. Now that means that every time that there is a B in the song, we automatically play it as a B flat. Let's look at the chords. We are starting with a B flat, which is simply the 4 chord. Okay, so we have this, this, and this. These are the 3 notes that make up the 4 chord of F major, and they are these notes over here. It's pretty simple, right? We are completely inside F major. We are not deterring from the scale at all. Then we are hitting the F major chord, which is just the 1 chord. All that is going on as an added spice is that we have a first inversion. And what that means is that instead of just the regular old F major, which looks like that, we're having the exact same notes. We're just playing them in a bit of a different order, meaning that as the lowest note, we'll be having actually this one. So we'll actually put this note higher up here and take it out from the bottom. So the notes are the same. It's still F, A, and C. It's just that the lowest note is an A. An inversion creates a bit of a different flavor to a chord, and it's something that Marty uses a lot. Next up, we are going along and having a B flat again, an F major with an A in the bass again, so the same inversion. Then comes an A7. 7th chords usually are chords that are taking us somewhere. The target of our A7 is a D minor. And a D minor is something that is completely inside our F major here. So we have a D minor, which is D, F, and A. And everything's right inside. The thing is that for every single chord that we ever play, we can have a chord that takes us to that chord. There are many different chords we can use for that function, but the most common one is the 5 chord. A 5 to 1 chord progression is the most essential chord progression there is. From the old days of yore, there was a 5 to 1 progression. A 5 to a 1. And in the key of F major, that would be a C7, because this is a C, right? A C7 to an F. That is a 5 to 1. I'm using Roman numerals there. That's something that is commonly used for chord analysis stuff. The thing is that we can have the same 5 to 1 progression to any chord there is, as long as we have the same distance of a 5 to 1, meaning that the interval stays the same. And the interval 5th, as they call it, to a D is A. So an A7 takes us to the D, which in this key is the D minor. Then it is the D minor, which is the 6, then a B flat, which is the 4, a C with an E in the bass is just a 5 chord first inversion, meaning that instead of the 1, we have the 3rd on the bass. Next section, F major is the 1, A minor is the 3, G minor, which is the 2, then an E major. Well, what's going on in here is we have an E major chord it has these notes. But the reason why this works is we have an implied dominant chord function. So this would be a 5 chord going in somewhere. We're not playing all the 4 notes of the 7th chord, but that's still the function of the chord. That doesn't really change here. And what is going on is we have a 5 that is taking us somewhere again. And that, this time, is an A. So this would be written down in Roman numerals like this. It's a 5 that is going to a 3. So the 3 is just in the key completely, A minor. That's the target. And we have a nice pull to it. And the same kind of a 5 chord can exist for any chord. And now I said that that was a 5 to the 3. That doesn't mean that we're going to the 3. No, we're actually just going to the 4. And that's okay. We can set up tensions. That doesn't mean we always have to resolve right there. You know? It's like a story that is unfolding, but if everything always goes exactly as predicted, that is, you know, not as interesting. Or I'd say that it's not a prerequisite for every 5 chord that it has to go to the 1. No, these are just all colors and tensions. You can do whatever you want with them. So we're going to the B flat, which is the 4. Then comes a C, a 5 again, and C, that means no chord. The reason why it's there particularly is because it's implying that the rhythm section kind of stops. Then an F major, which is the 1, and D7, which you're probably guessing what this is. This is from the 3rd category of chords. The D7 is a 5 to the G minor. Analytically, we will write this down like this, 5 to a 2. So, if our target is G minor, which is totally in the scale, let's see what happens. And what do you know? We are going to a G, but instead of going to a G minor, we're actually shifting keys. We are all of a sudden in a new key of G major, and the D7 kind of nicely set us up for the shift. So we are in a new key. Let me write down the G major scale over here. So the function of the notes don't change. It's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's just that the placement of the notes is different. And as you can see, in G major, there is only one note that is sharpened. Meaning that, for instance, when we're playing on the piano, we can play all the white keys, except when we play the F, we always need to sharpen that to be in the key. So instead of an F, we are playing an F sharp. And that is why in the notation as well, you can see that there's a double bar line over here, and there is a sharp note here. And if you read notation, maybe you can see that it's in the very place where an F note would be. So that's the implication of a sharp like this. It means that we are in a new key, and every time you go to an F, you make that sharp. G major is the 1, B minor is the 3, A minor is the 2, D7 is the 5, right? So it's very, very similar to what we had before. We're just in a new key. A minor is the 2, D7 is a 5, E minor add 9, it is an E minor chord, which is the 6 in this key. And the added spice here is that we have an add 9 on it. Now add 9s are chords that everybody loves, at least I do. So the notes look like this in an E minor. And if I extended this E minor up into an E minor 7, then we would also have this note, right? And if we extended it even further, then it would be this note. And we could have a chord that has all of these notes, and it sounds nice. But what is the difference here between an E minor 9 chord and an E minor add 9 chord is just a one note difference, meaning this note. We're not playing it. It's not a big difference, but it is a difference. And it does feel different. To me, a minor 9 chord feels kind of wide and, well, like a warm bath in a way. Like it's a very calming sound. But if you don't put the 7 in there, meaning that you have E minor add 9, then to me, again, this is all subjective. To me, it's a bit more melodious in a way. And he has a different kind of an energy that is not as calm. And again, it's a matter of taste. Now, what's nice about add 9 chords as well is you can use it on both minor and major chords. So it can be an E major add 9 as well. That's totally fine. It will look like that then. The thing that's kind of handy about adding a 9 to a chord is that it doesn't take part in the fact that there's something major or minor. It can exist in both. And the thing is here also that this F sharp, maybe you noticed already, it is located right here. You can put it here too, so you can play it right next to the root. The reason why it's called a 9 is because of that very function that I just showed you, which is this. Here's the root, here's the 3rd, here's the 5th, here's the 7th, here's the 9. We could keep on going that to 11, 13, however wide you want. That's the 6th chord with an added spice of an add 9. Then comes a D7, which is the 5, G is the 1, B minor is the 3, A minor is the 2. It's pretty simple, right? It's pretty straightforward. D7 is the 5, A minor is the 2, D7 is the 5, G is the 1. Then comes a bit of a new function thing. The G major is a 1 chord. However, we have a chord that is of a different function. And we are playing a 5 chord that is taking us to the next section that starts with the chord 4. So we are going to a 4 chord, and to get a nice pull to the chord, we have a 5 that is taking us to a 4, and that happens to be a G7. So for this one small moment, we are not using the F sharp, but we are using an F natural. When I say F natural, it means that I'm specifying that it's just the F. It's not F sharp, it's not anything else, it is F natural, meaning the very white key of the F. We could write it down also like this. This is a marking that means natural. That's why we can have a note that is out of the key again, the F, because it fits the chord. So, next section starts. C is the 4, G is the 1, C is the 4, 1, B7. You can probably guess what's going on. If you want to pause here and think about where it's going, go ahead. But for the rest of you, I'm going to spoil it. It's a 5 to E minor. And E minor in this key is the 6. So a 5 to 6, a 6 chord. C is the 4, D7 is the 5, A minor is the 2, E minor is the 6. We're all inside G major nicely. E minor with some extra visual shapes for the arpeggios. We'll talk about those later. A B7, same chord. E minor, same thing. C is the 4. Then here's a new chord, and that's C minor. Now this is a chord for the second category of chords that are from some other scale. What is going on here is that we are borrowing from G minor. And what that means is we have a 4 that has these notes, right? C, E, G. And all of a sudden we have a chord that has an E flat. Now here are the intervals for a natural minor scale. As you can see, most of the notes stay the same, but 3 notes are flattened down a half step lower. So G, A, B flat, C, D, E flat, and F. Okay. Now what is simply happening is that we are borrowing from this scale. We could delve even deeper here and look at how we are only borrowing the flat 6 from the minor scale, meaning that the 3 and the 7 still remain kind of the same, or we haven't touched on those. But that is a topic for a different time, and we don't need to talk about it here. For simplicity's sake, let's say that we are borrowing from G minor. So if you'd like to mark it down with Roman numerals again, it would be first the 4 would be marked down like this, which is the C, and then the C minor would just be like this. You can call it a 4 minor, a minor 4, either way is fine. And who doesn't love that chord, right? It's such a nice bittersweet sound. I've loved that sound ever since I was a little kid, but it took me years later to understand what that chord is. But it was kind of nice to figure out that I already had an emotional connection to that chord. As a kid, I listened to a lot of Barry White and Burt Bacharach. Those were vinyl records that my parents had. So I got a lot of minor 4s from those. Next up is a section where there is no chords basically going on, just the guitar on its own. So we'll look at that when we look at the melody. So next section kicks in and the drums come in hard. G major is the 1, B minor is the 3, A minor is the 2. See what's going on? It's all pretty much the same, right? D7 is the 5, 2, 5, 1, and again a 5 to a 4. C is the 4, G is the 1, 4, 1, F diminished. What is going on here? Diminished chords are a hairy bunch in that they can have some different functions depending on the context. The context that is going on here is this is a chord that is taking us somewhere. Our target is the A, and normally for an A minor chord we would have an E7. Let me write down the notes of an E7 chord. That would be the most simplistic way to pull us into the A minor. However, let's extend this chord like we did before with the add 9. This is the 1, this is the 3, this is the 5, this is the flat 7th chord. Next up, we extend it even further to a 9, and in this case it's flat 9. This is the most common formula for an extended 7th chord when we are going for a minor chord. The flat 9 in this case would be an F. Now this would be just an extension of an E7 chord, and we would call it an E7 flat 9. However, take a look at this. Let's take this note out. With these notes, we still have the same function that's going on, right? We're just missing the root of the chord. Now in this case, if it would be like this, in this order with the G sharp in the bass, this would be called G sharp diminished 7th chord. However, we have the F in the bass. We're going to call it an F diminished 7th chord. Now diminished chords can be written down like with a circle like that, or with a diminished like that. This means the same thing. And the thing about diminished chords too is that in a way there are no inversions, because this is a symmetrical chord, meaning that no matter which way you turn it around, it's still the same intervals going on all the time. So an F diminished 7 chord has the exact same notes as a G sharp diminished chord, because the intervals are always the same, and this goes on forever. This is one of the reasons why it's kind of nice to play on the guitar, because you can grab a shape and play it all the way around and the shape doesn't change. For the purpose of this deep dive here, I wanted to show you the function of the chord, and that is that it's an extended version of a 5 chord that is taking us to A minor. Okay, let's keep going. A minor is the 2, C minor, again a 4 minor, and a D7 is the 5, E flat, B flat, A flat. What's going on? We are again changing the key, and this time the key that we are changing into is an E flat major. Now what's different about this key change is that before we had the D7 that really set us up for the G major. Well, this time we're not really setting up the modulation in a similar way. It kind of pulls the rug out and all of a sudden it just changes the key. That's a sound too on its own, and I love that sound because it feels so sudden and new. I love the sound of a key change, and there's also something special about a key change just happening without setting it up at all. Anyway, we're going into E flat major, and again the function of the notes remain the same. They're just starting from a different spot. So when we start from an E flat note, this is what we get. And as you probably can see, we have 3 notes that are flat, and that's what we have marked down here in the notation, 3 flat notes. And where they are on the notation is B flat, E flat, A flat. So E flat is 1, B flat is 5, A flat is 4, E flat is 1. G7, you can probably guess what it is. If you want to pause it and figure out for yourself where it's going, go ahead. But for the rest of us, I'm going to spoil it, and it's a 5 to a 6. And the C minor is the 6. A flat is the 4, A flat minor, minor 4. Then we're in the outro, and again we are changing key, and we're not setting it up at all. It just happens. We're going back into the key in which we started, and that is F major. F major is the 1, A minor is the 3, G minor is the 2, E major with the G sharp in the bass. It's the same thing that we had before, which is that the E major is working as an E7. That is a chord that is taking us to A minor. So we would again write this down as a 5 to a 3. We simply have another spice on top, which is the inversion. This is first inversion, meaning that the third of the chord, the G sharp, is in the bass. Let's see if this time we're actually resolving to the A. We are not. We're going to the B flat again, which is the 4. C7 is the 5. And the very last chord that we're hitting is the 6, D minor. So instead of us resolving the song into an F major, which would be fine, we're landing on the D minor, which is the 6. And we also spice up the last chord by adding the 9 in there. The 6 is right here, so the D is our root. This right here is a D minor triad. And we have the 9 here in between. And one nice way that we can play it on guitar is that we leave the top E string open. That's what's going on in the rhythm guitar of this song. But yeah, we are done with the harmony of a prayer. I would call this one of the more accessible songs of Marty. Definitely one of the more accessible songs in this album, Drama. And it's a nice way to learn about chord functions and key changes that Marty likes to use. But yeah, that's it. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you got something out of this. And I'll see you in the melody part. Thanks.